We're here for the fourth race of the episode. We head to the Nurburgring for a 725 category race. These are the fastest cars will be seen in the episode, though, as there's no definitive 750 race for it. Not this one. And here at the Nurburgring with some pretty ugly looking clouds. I think there's some sprinkles laying around too. So maybe some water on the track surface as we get this race going. You can see some of the cars on the pit lane there. I think the quick... Oh, well, now you can see most of them as we have a pit lane shot. Very nice that the game gives these cars screen time, because I did have to do a lot of work for a lot of these liveries. So, yeah, GT7's livery editor means that I have at least had some hand in designing all of the cars that you see in the races. Although sometimes, for drivers with more complex tastes, I have not done that, and instead had the, you can, like, download and then edit certain users' liveries, if they allow that, like in the settings when they share the car livery. You can see in the little 22B up there, which is kind of like foreshadowing, that is not a vehicle I designed. That is a vehicle that, I edited. Somebody else made it, and then I edited the number on the car and added a couple of other sponsors to make it blend in with the sponsors used in the challenge series a little better. But for now, let's just get into this race. Oh yeah, there's some rain. There's even a little moisture measurement thing in the bottom left corner next to the racing tire. Ryan is taking a bit of a bold approach. He's on the racing hards, whereas everybody else has switched back to the soft tire. A smaller grid, as there are considerably fewer cars in this category available. Carly Watts in a Ford GT. Alice Carson making a debut in the series. She was name-dropped a couple of times in the original series, but with no Honda to drive in the challenge series. Oh, speaking of Hondas, yeah, Hanukkah's no drifter. She did her best, but she swung the other way and then gets tagged by Ryan Stevens, and that's a wall. Yes, there's Hanukkah making a reappearance in the episode in her much more recent NSX model. Cam Walker in the R8, who is probably faring a bit better than others in the rain due to being all-wheel drive. Thomas O'Reilly, who's absolutely not faring very well in the rain with a convertible top car and a lot of horsepower and not a lot of traction. Ryan Stevens, Kogasa Tatara, Eric Wojciechowski, Dom DePrisco, Jake Scarborough making an appearance over from the Twist Invitationals, and Lin Chi Ganyu, who, she was in the original challenge series. She was one of the European developmental drivers. Or no, she was in the Asians one, but she drove a European car. It was weird. Being Chinese, but also loving, oh goodness me. Ryan Wolf had a lot of bravery heading into this kink that nobody else seemed to replicate, and that sends Wolf flying off the track, collects Jake, and collects Eric as well. That was quite a mess. How did I get here? What? Yeah, I know Alice Carson was name-dropped a few times throughout the series, but due to there being no Hondas in the original challenge series, she couldn't make an appearance. Now she can, and she's got a Takata Dome NSX replica car as her 725 vehicle, though her primary is in a different category. And there goes that SLR McLaren. Ryan, I think, might be seeing a bit of anger here after getting absolutely blocked off by that 458 a minute ago. Is wasting little time and making his way back up the field, to say the least. Yeah, I guess technically speaking, Kogasa is coming over from Unhinged, driving a very different looking Jaguar on this occasion than she was before in the Wreckfest series. Ryan Wolf just came at her with so much tenacity that she almost lost control from shock, I feel. The track is clearly not quite wet enough to where racing hards can't do the job. A mistake that many other drivers, every other driver, except for Ryan Wolf, has made. Obviously, knowing the Nurburgring circuit very well, due to it being in his home country, he probably knows, too, how to drive this track, even if it were wet enough for, like, slicks. He's announcing displeasure, but ultimately moves on. He has the move done. He sent the message. He about loses the car again. Yeah, not perfect. Not perfect conditions for those racing hards, but not bad. As Jake just merges back on the track into Ryan, but luckily doesn't affect the McLaren driver at all. But now you can see the actual raindrops represented on the screen. And Ganyu lets off heavily into the kink. Ryan does not, and he will now take the lead pretty easily. Jake makes some bumper contact. He's trying to give the bump and run into a chicane and then throws it on the outside. That's really not what a bump and run normally looks like. Yeah, so like prove an example of a car that I designed. I designed all three cars in the top three. I did not design this 458. I also did not design the Takata Dome NSX either. But I didn't design this either. This is an edited replica livery of an old IMSA car, back from the GT2 racing days. But even the cars that I didn't make, I still edited their numbers to line up with the driver's numbers, like 67 here on this car. 34 on this one, normally it says 18. There was no number on this livery originally, and it's kind of hard to see in this lighting, but somewhere in there is a number 88. These three are all bumper to bumper to bumper, but all fogged up and nowhere to go. Never mind, Jake Scarborough makes a bad mistake on the exit of turn 1, and Ganyu makes full advantage and will take P2 back. Cam had a shocking start to the race. He's trying to make amends with the four-wheel drive capabilities of his R8, but he's having no problems with traction. Carly Watts is constantly having to save the car, so advantage all-wheel drive. Haruka has made a bit of a recovery after spinning on the first lap. Mind you, that's sort of helped by Eric doing the same, Ryan getting close to doing the same in every corner, and I imagine the same goes for Thomas O'Reilly. Why am I in bumper cam? Oh, that's why Thomas is suffering. He's on comfort softs. He doesn't own sports tires. At some point, DePrisco also got ahead of Scarborough. Scarborough wants it back, but he's not going to have an opportunity at it. He's going to give him the bump, but it's still not going to... no, it's still not going to unsettle him enough. And despite the conditions, Ryan Wolf takes the faster tires, and that will carry him to a... well, not easy victory, but a definitive victory over second place Linishi Ganyu. As we now look at the full race results after we fade back out. Something I probably should have done in the first 2 episodes, but oops. Yeah, the 4-wheel drive, I figured Cam would be competing for the win. He didn't really have the right start to the race, though, to really manage that. He was caught in the wrong place at the wrong time, I think, on the start. I don't think anybody had any chance against Ryan Wolf, as he was able to take racing slicks on a wet track and survive. And now we head into the final race of the episode. For the 5th and the final race of this episode, we head to basically what Gina thinks is going to be the lifeblood of this variant of the challenge series, the potluck event. Basically, all 100 vehicles are put into a random draw, and a random number generator picks 1 through 100, and whatever number it lands on is the car that shows up in the race. Do this for a full grid of 20 vehicles and no class restrictions, and you're going to have a beautiful mess. Let's just put it that way. So obviously, as I just mentioned, every car and every grid spot for every car was chosen completely at random. And then I was meant to put the camera on the car that starts in last. As the potluck race is underway, random grids mean that some of the fastest cars may be starting way in the back. It's also a grid start. No race before this has had this. We are racing with Craig Thompson, or at least that's the one I'm controlling. Craig Thompson is a debuting driver in the series. Not much is known about him yet, other than that he likes Subarus, and he has a terrible, ironic sense of humor, and can't take much of anything seriously, even when he's racing. This draws the ire of a few competitors. He makes an educated send there, and gets 2 places for the price of 1 corner. Making up several more places on cars in lower categories, like Sebastian Sham and his Scirocco. Go over the full running order here. Johnny Parker driving his primary C6 Corvette. Nitori makes her first appearance in the series in a potluck race. She started in second, I should say. Melissa Weiss, a driver from Monaco, who instead of buying a fancy Rolls Royce, bought an ST205 and tried being a rally hobbyist. Gina driving a Rayamamia tuned replica of the Mazda RX-7 LM race car from Gran Turismo 2, and getting bodied out of the way by Stephanie Kaiser, who we saw earlier. Derek Schwartz and his own LM race car clone is in the running. Otto Koskinen, a Finnish driver who, as you can probably guess by the fact that he's driving a Lancer, is madly in love with the idea of Tommi Mäkinen, another rally fan. He butts heads with Craig Thompson on many an occasion because Otto Koskinen takes everything seriously, treats every race as if it's his last, and always gives everything he's got and more into every race he runs. Truly admirable. But Craig Thompson usually doesn't even give 75%, makes terrible jokes, thinks the number 69 is hilarious. Can't see it here, but it's on the side of his car. What the hell? And, yeah. He's that guy. He also is the only driver that has a tobacco brand on his car. He's sponsored by Camel. Somewhere. You also can't... Oh, there we go. That's a better shot of the car. He's got camo on the side. He's got the number 69. Alright, I'm supposed to be June Summers, making basically her debut. She's been in the series since day one, but with no Aston Martins in the original Challenge series or the Twisted Invitational, she's kind of sat on the wayside. But now, Aston Martins are available, so she's finally able to make an appearance. Kyozo Kitano, we saw them earlier. Sebastian Sham in his Scirocco. Tyler McIntosh in his Supra. Samuel Jansen driving a Plymouth Superbird, which is in a higher category than the Hellcat, for better or worse. Riley Blanchard makes her first appearance. She's a pretty major competitor in the Assetto Corsa variant of the Challenge series. And with like 7 different Corvettes in the game, there's no way we could leave this one behind. Thomas O'Reilly, now actually going to get a chance to prove what his Cobra can do when he has racing tires on. Dakota Kingsley, Ivan Sodakov, and my dad, who comes over from Unhinged, driving a Firebird. Anyway, as we get the camera back on Craig Thompson and continue on our way. Also, when Craig is trying, his racing style would be best described as aggressive. He's caught behind Otto Koskinen right now, as I mentioned him earlier. Gets blocked 3 times on the same straightaway by the Evo 6. And, oh god! Yeah, there's Craig for you. A funny number guy decides to just wreck a guy over being blocked on a straightaway. Just barely manages to not collect June Summers in the equation, and does make a little nice 360, but he loses a lot of positions in the process. Now, there are no collision penalties or corner cutting penalties in this series either. There's no penalty at all, really. The Challenge series is basically an extended version of a touring car series, so just about anything goes. Some guy takes you off, just run him out of the way. But don't be surprised if that same thing comes back against you and he turns you the next time he sees you. It's like NASCAR. But better. Many of the expected drivers have started to migrate to the lead. Carly Watts is in a 725 car, so it's no surprise she runs high. Johnny Parker's C6 Corvette is in fact a 750 competitor, so it's really no surprise that he's currently storming away with the race. Also, there's no indication on the screen, but this is a 10-minute endurance race. As, wow, that is a mighty train that Nitori is heading right now with this low-powered vehicle. They're 3 wide behind her, and Samuel Jansen and his Superbird will take full advantage of the sequence and take 3 places for the price of 1. There are 2 abreast heading to turn 1 through the Senna S is here at Interlagos, another new track to the series courtesy of GT7. I thought it took me this long to point out, oh yeah, we're in a new track. Of course, Nitori has a 625 car, so its power being a little bit down compared to 675 cars really isn't that much of a shock. The horsepower is already kind of low when compared to other 625 cars for that matter, so... Gina manages to find real estate on the outside, but Natori, using some defensive driving, making the world's widest Mitsubishi GTO. Hilariously, Ivan Sodakov is the only 575 car here, which does mean he'll get full credit for being a 575 competitor by beating all of the other 575 cars. This is basically a class race. It doesn't matter a whole lot if, like, let's say, you know, it's a high power car. Well, Thomas O'Reilly's Cobra is the 725 car. It doesn't matter a whole lot if he manages to beat a bunch of 675 cars. He needs to focus on beating the other 725s, which in this race, the only other one is Carly Watts, and he's getting nowhere near beating it. If somehow he could manage to finish ahead of, say, Samuel Jansen or Johnny Parker, he would get bonus points. So, Craig Thompson, despite his earlier transgression against one Otto Koskinen, he's on for quite a bit of bonus points because he's in a 675 car and he's running second to only a 750 class. He's ahead of 3 cars that are in a higher category than him. Stephanie Kaiser doing the same, being ahead of Samuel Jansen and Thomas O'Reilly herself. Cars that are in higher categories and should be ahead of her, but aren't. Koskinen and Kingsley would be losing points, or like losing overall credit, because they're behind 625 cars, and they're in the back of their own category of the 675s. Now, there is no point system. It's sort of like a floating judgment scale like Twisted Invitationals had, where I just kind of bear in mind, personally, like me and the other sort of judging column will determine, like, yes, this 625 car beats 675 cars. They earn bonus credit towards the big event near the end of the season. As Dakota had an easy shot at an overtake and might take it. He'll take the chance, but he might not make the move anyway. Koskinen is now on the inside of the truck, so if he cannot produce the overtake, he may just find himself being overtaken instead. But he stays neutral. We got a bit of a battle brewing for the last car in the 625 category between my dad and Sebastian Sham. Another power versus handling debate. Get used to seeing a lot of that. Here comes the power down the inside of the Volkswagen, but here comes the handling around the outside of the Pontiac. With not much time left to go in this race, this might be the final lap of the event right here. And it's going to come down to, can Craig Thompson, for all of his follies, manage to beat a car 2 categories ahead of him and win the potluck event here in the first episode of the Challenge Series? Now, for future episodes, there will be other more directly themed events. The original Challenge Series, the Challenge Series, if you may recall, is meant to be structured based around the progression system that Gran Turismo 4 possessed. So there'll be themed events like the 4-wheel drive challenge, the MR challenge. And they may not necessarily be restricted to a particular category, but they will be like, you know, like, oh, you can't be over 725, and it has to be like mid-engine or something. As we head through the slow corners, the all-wheel drive of that 22B is going to come in handy against the Corvette. Craig Thompson taking a wide arc through this corner. Now we have an acceleration zone. Craig Thompson will probably try something desperate here, and he does. He's going to send it in on Parker. He's going to force him wide. He's going to make him give him space, but now we reach a straightaway, and that Corvette is gone. So it will be Johnny Parker just about eking out the win here in the potluck race. If we had another lap, he'd be lapping Ivan Sotokov up ahead. And now you can look at the finishing results. Thomas O'Reilly did in fact defeat Samuel Jansen, a car in a higher category. So Samuel Jansen has a massive net loss here, as he's in the 750 car and got beat by 4 people who aren't in that category. I'm reading that. A big win for Craig Thompson and for Stephanie Kaiser, who beat 2 cars in a category higher than theirs. Well, actually 3 in Thompson's case, and almost beat a 4th, and almost won the race. Dakota Kingsley managed to make last-second moves to save face and not lose to any 625 cars. Otto Koskinen, not necessarily through any fault of his own, did not succeed in this matter, finishing behind Nittery. So that'll conclude matters on this episode. Poor Ivan was left on his own. I don't know. It's not the worst thing, because he does get full points, and he can't lose anything else. He had no risk going into this race other than just getting run over. So that'll conclude matters here for the first episode of the Challenge Series. Join us next time when we head into the first of the thematic races, the Sunday Cup. Naturally. 575 cars or under, and you may find some 625 drivers detuning their cars to run it. That's totally allowed. That's totally allowed. That's totally allowed. You can detune a car into a lower category, or you can, obviously you can tune it into a higher one. There's no way a Plymouth Superbird would be in the 750 category if it didn't have a lot of horsepower. 740 of it. Almost all of these cars are at least lightly modified in a certain way. So, yeah. That means you can unmodify them just as easily and put them in a lower category. I expect to see this from the likes of myself, like my dad, and from Emi Barzaki, whose cars only barely made it to 625 in the first place. So the next episode will have the 3 races of the Sunday Cup, higher octane event, and then another potluck event to end the episode.